Trent Cotney and John Kenney are dedicated to helping the construction industry with legal business and safety challenges. Welcome to this week's episode of Law and Mortar.
Hey, this is Trent Cotney. I'd like to welcome everybody to another episode of Law and Mortar. As always, I've got John Kenney with me. John, how are you doing?
Doing great as always, Trent. It's fantastic to be here, and there's never a lack of anything to discuss in our industry, and it's always great to keep reaching out to our constant and loyal listeners and viewers. So it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. It is like you said, there's there's an abundance of things to talk about right now. Ever since Trump took office in January, there's been a slew of executive orders, a lot of changes, a lot of, new department heads. The news is just constant every single day. And, as I'm kind of looking at it and talking about it, one thing I think that this administration is doing that Trump's doing this time that he didn't do the first time is I think there's a little bit of a tactical element to how things are being rolled out. I think a lot of these executive orders he's inundating opposition with order after order after order after order. And in looking at it, I remember that first night, frantically taking notes as he's signing stuff on January 20th. I was like, this is nuts. I've never seen anything like this. And there's some stuff. I remember he got to the birthright citizenship thing, and I'm like, I remember from first year of law school, I was like, that's unconstitutional. You can't do that. But I think, and I'm curious to see what you think. I think there are certain things like that he throws out there, and it's basically like a red herring or a smoke screen. Go fight over this, and meanwhile, I'll put four or five more executive orders, on the table. I think part of the strategy is every day roll something out, keep the opposition guessing, and you've only got so much money to challenge things, right? You can't hire every lawyer in the universe to challenge every executive order. So I think part of what I'm seeing is a more tactical approach to this go around than we saw in the first Trump administration. What's your take on that?
Oh, I think you're 100% spot on with that. I mean, definitely this strategic part of the way these are going out is exact. That's a great example. There's a few other ones. That's the noise. That's the noise that's being thrown out, and they'll take up the time, and people will be doing the challenges as they have to, and but that's what's focused from our media and hitting the headlines, and we're all hearing. I'm to the aspect like you, I'm trying to keep up with the ones that are actually being signed that are going and are affecting us, maybe not quite yet. And when I say us, I think it's the entire construction industry. It's not just roofing, because we all really fall under one umbrella when it comes to, labor, materials, and all the other things that are involved in it. So it's all for one. We're all in.
Yeah, and I think so far I've seen some stuff that's good for construction. I've seen some stuff that's potentially bad. I think, a good thing for construction is the deregulation. It's he signed an executive order freezing all regulations that were pending, stuff like the OSHA heat injury and illness rule, EPA stuff. He's rolled back a lot of stuff that I think would cost businesses money or potentially, not necessarily hurt the construction industry, but make it more costly to, do the kind of work that you need to do. So, not a big fan of government deregulation is probably a good thing for construction. The one thing that's got me worried the most, though, is immigration. And the reason why it's got me worried is look, and this isn't a political statement, but it's just from most of, I would say the majority of our sub labor and a lot of even our W-2 labor there are, it's a good chance that they may be illegal or they may not have, all the requisite documentation that they need. And my concern is that as some of these policies roll out, that you're going to be in a situation where, if I'm on a sub crew and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, well, am I going to get deported? Or here's something that I've heard directly is I had someone come up to me, you and I both are on the road constantly.
Yeah.
I had someone come up to me and they said, look, I'm not concerned about being deported myself. What I am concerned is that, I work 3 or 4 weeks and then I take a week off and I take money and food and other stuff that I buy here in the US and I take it back to my family in Mexico. And I'm concerned that I can't freely cross the border. So I don't want to be in a position where I go over there and I can't get back. And I got to make a decision. Either I stay here roll the dice, or I go somewhere else where I've got access and I can get back to my family. Bottom line is that my concern is I think you're going to see our labor pool shrink, and I think you're going to see labor rates go up. But you got your finger on the pulse when it comes to that kind of stuff. What are you hearing?
No, and it's yeah, it's not even a double-edged sword. It's kind of a three or four edges to it. And you brought up a very good point. Even the actual legal immigration and the multi generations of different immigrant families that are here are no different than anybody else who's come across. You're right, they are making a decision. I've heard the same thing. I've had people talk to me about it, where until even as much as saying until this all calms down in a whatever few years they're considering even going to Canada and working in other countries so they have access in and out. That in itself is a killer because there's a huge amount of our workforce that is legal, but comes from that demographic. And then Johnny, you know me, I love data, so I tried to dig into this a little bit. So over construction, and it's hard to separate between construction and roofing. There's just not really good data, so you got to kind of lump them together. But from what I can feel on it, I'd say roofing, we're real close. You're looking at close to 47 to 52, 47, 46, 47% undocumented, completely undocumented. Now, a lot of that was really, this is the scary part. They have people that have been here for 20 plus years that are in our industry. Paperwork got messed up or ran out, or why bother? Everything's going well. And then you probably have only about 12% of that really illegal undocumented. That's, the underbelly, or, it's always been around in any industry. But not only the problem for us is if they leave or move or shift, you got farming. You've got service industry, you got restaurant, you have so many other industries pulling from the same pool of what's going to be left. That's going to be the part. And I think you're right. The labor that is left, I would really think we need to be expected for the greatest increase of labor that cost of keeping labor busy, keeping them on our payroll than we've probably seen in a long percentage wise, might be the biggest chunk in decades.
Yeah, and for our listeners, look, there is some positive things about the immigration policy. Like we're seeing, terrorists and criminals and all that kind of stuff. And I
And they
think
should be
regardless,
gone.
yeah, and what side of the fence you're on, I think everybody agrees with that. My concern is the chilling effect and sort of the ways that it would have within our industry. And I think you and I have always been big advocates for legal immigration, finding a way to get someone in here on a streamlined work visa. H-2Bs don't work. They're too hard to figure out, and there's not enough allocated. Figure out a way where workers can come in, be tracked, get taxed, go back and forth as needed. But, construction depends on agriculture, hospitality. A lot of our core industry, especially here in Florida, depend on that type of labor. So I have my eye, and I know you do as well, closely on that. The other issue that I've kind of seen, to me, it's a little bit more of a question mark. I think some of the good stuff, I think there probably will be some tax benefits that help businesses, small businesses that I'm hearing from Trump. But on the tariff side, it's a big question mark. And right now, what we've seen in the first few weeks of the administration is him using tariffs as a negotiating point, right?
Mhm.
As we talk now, right before we started, he's about to implement 25% tariffs on, Mexico and Canada, 10% on China. And I think a lot of that is it's used as leverage. My concern is that once you start, adding tariffs to goods, are the chemicals and the core, raw materials that are used to make roofing materials, is that going to affect the end price? One of the things that I've counseled contractors on, and it doesn't matter what what age it is, you always need a price acceleration provision in that contract because you never know what the next thing is that's going to tie it up, make that price go up. But have you had, in your travels or in talking to contractors from the business side, have you had anybody express concern over material prices and tariffs?
I have, and I've even heard it from people on the manufacturing and the supplier circuit. When you get together in the rooms, there's a lot of times I have the sponsorships by them. And the biggest thing is the fact that we don't know where it's going to come from because, like with Canada, it's going to be metals and wood, which that's going to affect the construction industry. Mexico, maybe not so much. That's more auto and farm and agricultural and machinery. When 10 more percent around the board on China, of course, we got consumer goods, but that's overall economic issue. But it's the chemicals, and that's what it is. If we start to get into where they're coming from. We had a lot of chemicals and roofing manufacturing that come from China. There's just no doubt about it. They're a huge supplier of raw materials. Where's that going to go? Who knows? And I mean, I wish I had a crystal ball, but I don't. But the thing, I'm with you. You're looking at it from the legal aspect, and I'm telling contractors there has never been any time in the last probably through since we've had the crash in '08 where everybody got caught behind the eight ball. Let's not get caught with that. Things are going to change. It's not going to be drastic overnight. And well, I wouldn't think it would be. But what it is, if you get your business ready, you can't have a lot of open loopholes in your own business. You can't be sloppy. You can't not know what's going on. You really got to tighten the reins up. And you should anyways in any economy. But I think that's real important right now because I think it's going to be fluid. You're right. It is going to be used around the world. It could be the EU tomorrow for negotiation, whatever it may be. But in the meantime, some of these are going to stick for certain periods of time, and we've got to deal with them in our industry.
Yeah, significant amount of uncertainty right now. And, anytime there's uncertain times, regardless of what you think politically, you need to just shore up your business practices, make sure you cross your T's, dot your I's, get your, contracts and SOPs in place. And, it's business as usual. Roofing is roofing is roofing. Everybody needs a roof. We'll continue to be strong, continue to have backlog. It's just navigating these, the new world order. What do prices look like? What does labor look like? How do we account for that? How does the consumer account for that? And then, where does that lead us? So
Well,
that's
let
kind
me
of the
wrap
world
on
that we
what you just said. You hit such a key point. Whatever your political views are, I've been working with companies, and I've even said this through my earlier career as a contractor. Politics, as hard as it may be, you got to keep that out of your company. You have
Mhm.
got to be the neutral land when it comes to that, because one, you don't know who your employees are at with, you don't know what your clients are with, you don't know the lay of the land. Today it's we're on this side, then tomorrow we're on that side. You got to look at your company as an entity that has to survive regardless which way the wind blows or the waves come in. You really do. And I think if you can get in that mindset, you'll be successful.
Yeah, exactly. There's no blue or red. We only see green. So, it's
Or black
interesting.
on the bottom of that statement.
There you go. So, obviously we got a lot of travel coming up. There's a handful of things that'll happen, but and we'll probably talk a little bit more about what to expect at IRE. But International Roofing Expo is coming up, biggest event of the year. This year's in San Antonio, a little bit of a different venue. They haven't been there, I think, in more than a decade. It's been a while.
Yeah, it might be
So
20. I think it's like 20 years or so.
yeah, it's. I was trying to remember the last time they were there, and it's been quite a while. So interesting venue. It'll be a good change up. But what are you looking forward to at IRE?
I think it's a great time to hear, really going to get a great perspective of what's going on in our industry and get to hear meeting up with the manufacturers to see how they're feeling about material pricing. I know there's some new system techniques out there. There's some new products coming out. You do hear about these before you get to the show. That's just the way the internet is, but it'll be great to see it. And it's always good for the education sessions. I mean, I'm doing two. I know you're doing a few. I think it's always great. I am looking forward to San Antonio because it's somewhere new. That's the nice part about it.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've been there, so I'm looking forward to getting some good Tex-Mex and being able to see everybody again. There's certain people that you only see at IRA. So,
Absolutely.
and we'll talk more about it. But now, John, it's your favorite time of the
Yes.
podcast, and we've got quite a few stacked up. But this one I thought was directly on point. We got this one a little bit more recent, so apologize to all the other questions, but this one made more sense. So this one's from Roger. Roger wants to know, in light of Trump's new immigration policies, do you have any ideas of what we can do to retain our labor? So I'll kind of kick
Well,
it to you.
yeah, I mean, I'll hit it first from that. I mean, first of all, I mean, it always should have been this way, but you got to really make sure your workforce is legal. And even more important than your own workforce, which you're probably at, you got to verify your subs. I mean, there's going to be some huge issues with labor subs that's going to be probably cause more problems than in-house labor. So the labor that you do have, I think right now you got to have a meeting. You got to bring them together. Let's talk about it. If you got a crew company and you got all your paperwork's all in order, everybody's good, you got to assure them that this is a future and this is going to be no different than any other time that we've gone through throughout history, and you got to take care of your people. I think this is an important time. You don't, because people are going to leave. Got to remember one thing: if there are shortages out there, and it's Roger, right? Roger, as shortages do come, and they will, there's going to be areas where people they're going to lose labor and they're going to need labor. That only means one thing: they're going to offer more money and they're going to attract people to come. So just got to be prepared for that. So you really want to hold on to your people.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of you're going to have to pay more, and you're going to need to have some open and honest conversations, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it is. I've had some contractors want to know, how can I create an assistance program? How can I put them in touch with, lawyers that will do immigration defense for individuals, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different things that you can do, but really the bottom line is I think you need to communicate and pay more. I think that's
You
what's going to
do.
happen.
But
Yep. So
communication is so important because people need to feel one, they're heard, two, you're listening, and three, you care, and they really do.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So never a dull moment, John. It's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds, over the next few weeks, and obviously we'll keep our listeners updated. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Stay tuned for another episode. We'll try to get one up in the next couple of weeks. If you want to get a hold of me, you can hit me up at Trent.Cotney at arlaw.com or at Trent Cotney on social. John, how can they get you?
Same way, get me at J Kenny at CotneyConsulting.com, or I'm John Kenny on social, and keep reaching out. Well, I love hearing from everybody, and I know Trent does too. You guys and ladies and contractors are all great out there. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for the positive feedback. Really appreciate it. And yeah, stay tuned for more. We appreciate you guys. Thank you.